Hi everybody, in today's video we're going to be talking about traditional Danish food and what you need to try. Stay tuned.
Come along as my Danish husband and our 2 kids show this American what it means to live a life in Denmark. My new Danish life.
Hi there and welcome back. If you're new to my channel, my name is Kelly and I'm an American who lives in a small town on Denmark's peninsula. And what's really cool about where I live is that it's a very traditional place in Denmark. We're not really influenced a lot by some of those foreign things like food. And my husband is the main cook in our house and he's a Danish guy. And so I've got the little inside scoop of all things Danish, and he makes a lot of traditional Danish meals for our family. Some I have never heard of before because I'm American, and these are things you just generally don't find in the US. But a lot of these are things that his grandmother used to make, and he's got a strong fondness for them. And I'm going to share with you what some of those things are. Before we get started with today's video, if you have not yet subscribed, please consider doing that. I would really appreciate to have you along as a subscriber. It means a lot to me to have you go ahead and click that button. If you are already a subscriber, thanks so much for being here. You're awesome. Now let's get to the good stuff. So you may be wondering, what am I drinking in today's video? Because a lot of times I like to share with you some really fun Danish drinks that you might not be able to find in other places. Well, I'm just going to share with you the drink in this video without in fact drinking it, because as I make this video, it's a little bit earlier in the day. And it's not quite the best time for me to kick back and relax, right? That's coming later. Okay, so Danish food, what do they eat here? And you might be saying, as a young 20-something person who lives in Sjælland or in Copenhagen, and saying, I don't know any of these meals. Yes, Pumpkin, you probably wouldn't, because these are traditional Danish meals from another area. Think of it this way. I come from the US. It's a huge country. What one grandma makes is a lot different than another grandma because there are so many cultures going on in one country. In Denmark, you might be thinking as a Dane, no, there's only one culture here. I beg to differ on that one. You've got your traditional Danes with traditional Danish values and traditional Danish food and lots of other things. And then you've got some of your more modern Danes who like to experiment with things that maybe aren't Danish, but maybe from other countries. I'm going to focus more towards this group, so don't feel offended when I'm not representing you. I apologize. This is all pure small town Danish cuisine that I'm going to be talking about. And if you know a lot about this or you have experience eating it, please join down below in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think of them. Here we go with number 1. This is Fluscustai. And Fluscustai is roasted pork. But it's crazy when you buy this in the grocery store. I know you can buy smaller portions, but for the life of me, I always tend to find it on sale when it is this big. You could get one this big on sale for like 160 kroner. You could get a lot of meals out of a piece of meat that's this big. It's like literally one whole portion of the pig. And when people are making this, they have the crackling. So the skin is on and the skin is crunchy. It's almost like when you're eating a pork rind or like a potato chip, but it's like really, really hard. I think of it more of like what dogs chew on. Even though it's not that hard because, I mean, people eat it. But this is something that is commonly eaten on Christmas Eve. And so I throw that out there as my number 1 because if you are Danish, no matter where you live, chances are you eat this for Christmas. A lot of times it's served with boiled potatoes or some other type of potatoes with a brown sauce. Number 2 is Fricadella, and it means meatball. So I know from me growing up in the US as a kid, meatballs were always kind of associated with spaghetti and meatballs. And they were always made out of beef. But in Denmark, the meatballs for fricadella are generally made out of pork. So it's a ground up pork with, you know, onions and spices and egg, and it's very much like how you'd make a meatball anywhere else. But these are usually pan fried. So they have kind of like a smushed look to them with it almost looks crunchy on the outside because they're pan fried. This is a very popular thing in my house. Like I said, my husband makes all of this stuff. My kids love my mother-in-law's fricadella. It's the one thing that they request from her all the time. And she's even given them the recipe. So they'll have it later on when they're old enough to make fricadella for themselves. And I think it's really cute that they have that connection because, again, this food is a lot like what your Danish grandmother would make. And she's their Danish grandmother. So there you go. Number 3 is tartaletta. Tartaletta is actually something that I can join in with because I'm vegetarian. So the majority of the things that I'm mentioning, yes, my husband makes, but I don't eat them. I could tell you what they're made out of and you could get an idea for yourself. But even if I could eat them, I couldn't really express what they taste like because I think a lot of things taste different to different people. But tartaletta, these are miniature little cups. In my opinion, they kind of look like quiche cups, but it's a little different. I think they're thicker if you really want to compare the two. And the insides that you would pour into this little cup, it's either shredded chicken or chicken pieces, and then it's also going to have pieces of white asparagus. This is something that is really popular. I've seen it on a lot of cafeteria menus. I myself don't eat chicken, so what we normally do is we would make like kind of the sauce, which is really just like butter and flour and milk like that, and then we would add in like peas and carrots and white asparagus. So that's something that I have actually seen in different places. It's not just what we do in our house, but it's a nice little vegetarian option for people who want to take part in tartaletta, but they don't eat meat. Number 4 is Medicipus. Palusa means sausage, and Medicipus is a certain kind, and this is rather large. It's so large that when you are cooking it on your frying pan, it swirls all the way around and takes up pretty much the whole space. And that's how you make it. And when you serve it, it's kind of like that on this big plate. Of course, you'll cut it into smaller pieces and then people can take from that. But that is how it is known for being this very long spiral type of sausage. This is something that is very Scandinavian, and I think you'll actually find it in other countries. But it's a minced pork, obviously sausage, and it's a little bit of a sweeter taste than some of the other sausages, from what I have heard. Generally, you could use a brown sauce with this as well, because sauce always goes well with pretty much anything if you ask a Dane. Number 5 is Palusa. Now, this is a smoked sausage, and they love their pork products. For me, when I was a meat eater, I loved smoked sausage, so I could almost guarantee that I would be a big fan of Palusa. That one's a little difficult to say. So I don't know if it translates to like cabbage sausage, but we always eat a side of green kale with it. Loncoll. Palusa, Loncoll. So that's also my number 6. Is Loncoll. So I'll explain that one in a second. So like I said, Palusa, they're kind of smaller, fatter sausages that are smoked sausages, and they're made mostly from pork and fats. So maybe that's probably why I would like them so much, because they're fatty. Everything that's fatty is tasting pretty good. But again, to the side of that, you would have Loncoll, which is like a creamed kale. And that is extremely popular in our house. And it's so crazy because I think green thing, my kids aren't going to want to eat that. But I have an 11-year-old and he absolutely loves everything that I've mentioned. Everything that's been on my list since the very beginning, he is a big fan of. He also really loves Loncoll. I love Loncoll because I'm a big fan of kale and I love vegetarian food, and that's probably one of my favorite Danish foods is Loncoll. Number 7. If you have heard me talk about weird things in Denmark, you probably would have heard me talk about this one. This is for Laurena Hare, and before, it really just means fake rabbit, because when I learned about it, I thought my husband was actually serving real rabbit, and I thought, is that what real rabbit looks like? This is meatloaf. But again, in the US, the meatloaf that I would normally make would have some tomato soup mixed in with it, and it would be made out of beef. This is not the same kind. This is a pork meatloaf. And the thing with this is that it's wrapped in bacon. So if you are a pork lover, you are going to love for Laurena Hare. And I have heard from a lot of Danes that that's something that's so old-fashioned that people don't eat. And I'm thinking, my 11-year-old loves it. It is one of his most favorite things ever. So I think that if you want Danish cuisine to die out, yeah, maybe you should have that attitude. Because I know people from this new generation who absolutely love it. So I think that it should be on more Danish menus out there, because from what I can see, it's pretty popular. There's also kind of like, it's not like a brown sauce that goes with it, but I think it's kind of cooked in its own sauce. Sometimes you see that with meatloaf because it's got to cook a lot longer in the oven, that you don't want it to dry out. So there's kind of like this brown gravy that goes along with it as well. Or at least it is when my husband makes it. Number 8 is Liva Pasai, which is a pate made out of pork liver and pork fats. This in Denmark is always served in some type of like little tin, like what you would use to bake bread out of. That is always how you would serve it, because it's something that can also be heated up. And when we normally would have this in the US, my husband would make it from scratch because you couldn't find it, and it would always be served warm. I know now that a lot of times in the grocery store refrigerator section, and then you take it home and you would just spread it over your bread. I think that is the most popular way of eating it, and a lot of Danes will eat it for lunch, if not every day, if that's something that they like. There's also many different kinds, and in our house, it's very popular to get the ones that have bacon in it. Number 9 is Bixamel. Bixamel, I have to say, I didn't really know much about until later on, because my husband never called it anything. We always just call it leftovers. And in a way, that's what Bixamel is. It's whatever meat that you have left over. You can kind of cut it up into pieces and throw it on a pan, make a sunny side up egg, throw in some potatoes, and maybe also some bacon. To me, it's a lot like what we would eat for breakfast in the US. We would have fried potatoes and eggs and bacon. That's very much a breakfast in the United States. But this is what you would do if you have some leftovers. You would call it Bixamel, and you would kind of throw them all together in a pan. I'm really curious out there, if you have made Bixamel, what is usually in yours? Because I have seen a lot of different versions of it, but I am wondering if there are certain types of leftover meats that you feel would be better to make Bixamel. Let me know in the comments. Number 10 is Carbonella. This one, it reminds me of kind of like a breaded pork patty. And this Carbonella, I haven't actually seen anywhere on a menu. Then again, I haven't been looking for it. But it can be made out of ground pork or ground veal, depending on how it is that you like it. And that's something that kind of looks like a really big burger in a way, but it does have the breading on the outside to make it a little special. Number 11, you know you gotta add in the sild, which is a Danish word for herring. A lot of people, they think about pickled herring being very Danish, and I just don't even want to think about it. I just can't even be around the smell, to be quite honest. But here they have so many kinds of herring. It's unbelievable. You can go to the grocery store, usually in the refrigerator section. There is these big jars that the brand is called Hirtshals Sild. And Hirtshals is the name of a town like way up top, Denmark. That's where you can get the ferry to Norway. And they have a lot of different varieties. I remember my husband said, pick up some herring at the grocery store. And I'm thinking, which kind? They have like herring with beets, curry herring, pickled herring, marinated herring, whatever you can think of. It blows my mind that they have so many options for this. Kind of like, oh, we love herring. Let's make every kind of herring you could possibly think of. And people think that's a good idea. My husband has bought multiple types and we've had them in our refrigerator. But no thanks. I think herring though is something you either like or you don't. But it's something to me that is very Danish. And a lot of times when people are eating it, I'd say around the Christmas holidays, there's always a little schnapps to go with it, maybe to help it down. Number 12, and this is actually what we had for supper last night, which is stjerneskud. And this is, like a seafood platter in a way. Of course, mine is altered because I don't eat everything, but you'll have a piece of bread on the bottom, probably like some kind of toast, right? So it's toasted bread. Then maybe you have like mayonnaise or Carbonella, which is some kind of like dressing on the bread. You then will have a piece of plaice, which is a thin type of fish. It might be comparable to a scholle if you're getting it from Germany, or some type of flounder, breaded flounder from the US. And then on top of that, you would put shrimp, caviar, slice of tomato, slice of cucumber, a couple sticks of raw asparagus, and lettuce. That's usually what's on every time that I've seen it. We actually also had some salmon on top of ours. I don't know if that's something that is common all the time, but when my husband is buying the fish, he buys it from the local fish truck, which we have in our town usually once a week. He is buying fresh fish, and it kind of goes all out when he's at the fish truck. So if we can get salmon in the place, we may have a little bit of extra on top of our stjerneskud. But if you're anywhere near a coast and you find it on a menu, you should most definitely get it if you like seafood or fish. It is really delicious. And my number 13 that I'm adding just for fun because I think it's a little weird in a way. This is bœuf au lait. And to me, it's a lot like a burger without the bun, right? And instead of having the ketchup and the mustard and all that kind of stuff, it has these cooked onions on top. I have never seen it when it doesn't have cooked onions on top. So it is beef, then next to it you'll probably have potatoes, probably boiled. Spoiler alert, that's pretty much what you're gonna get on the side. And to me, it just seems more like an actual meal. And a burger sometimes seems kind of like a quick meal. So this is something you can sit down and relax and enjoy. So there you go. When I had asked my husband as well about some things that he felt were very Danish, he was very specific about adding this one. Even though I thought to myself, well, a lot of people eat some kind of beef patty. Does it seem very Danish? But to him, I guess it does. What do you think about this list of 13? Which is your favorite, or which would you like to try? Let me know down in the comments. I would really like to know that. Before we're completely done with this video, I wanted to share with you my drink of choice. Since it is almost Easter, I went ahead and I got one of these. This is a Hancock Påskebro. And let's just be honest, I got it because of the cute little bunnies. I was like, oh my gosh, look how cute this is. I want to try the bunny beer. And you know, it says, later on I noticed, 10.5% alcohol. Who does that? Who makes such a high percentage of alcohol on a bunny beer? I mean, put like a guy with like a really big muscle or something. A guy driving like one of those big monster trucks. Not little bunnies. Boy, am I glad I didn't drink this in this video. I'm going to share this one with my husband because these bunnies packing some punch here. Like I said, this is from Hancock. They mostly make a lot of local soft drinks, and I'm really curious to know how this tastes. So if you have tried this beer, let me know. That's it for this video. Thanks for coming along and learning a little bit about my experiences with traditional Danish food. I hope that I mentioned some of your favorites or that you learned something new about Denmark through this video. This is a little window into traditional food, but I would love to tell you more about what I'm learning about traditional Denmark. But let me know your ideas in the comments. I hope to see you in another video, and as always, take care.